You're listening to a Bored to Death Solocast, where one member of our clan talks TV shows and movies in easily digestible chunks.
Hello again, ladies and gentlemen, and other assorted gender resignations. Welcome to the Bored to Death Bingecast Solocast, where one person talks TV shows and movies in easily digestible chunks. I'm Chris, and I'm back after a little bit of a delay with Star Trek Discovery Season 3, Episode 7, Unification III. So, based on the title of this one, it's clearly it's obviously a sequel of sorts to the Next Generation two-parter episode Unification Parts 1 and 2. Where we last left off with the Discovery crew was Michael Burnham and Philippa Georgiou went to go rescue Book from a savage planet, or basically a junkyard planet, essentially, that's run by the Andorian Orion Syndicate. And he went there because he found out that there was another black box which had information about the burn, which we are starting to slowly learn more about as to what may have essentially caused it, and a little bit more about the story about that, but we'll get back to that one later. So they end up getting Book back, and a Andorian who had his antennas cut off, who I also found out is the real-life husband of the actress who plays Tilly. So we haven't really seen any scenes of the two of them actually working together, but it should be pretty interesting to see if they ever actually do share a scene together. And so with this episode, they are going to go to the planet Vulcan, which actually has a different name now because apparently the thing that Spock had been trying to go for the longest time was unifying the Romulans and the Vulcans again. So apparently he did his job. I will go and get started on this, and I will see you after the binge.
While the binge is happening, thanks for listening to our podcast. Please give us a like and subscribe and spread the word. You can reach us on social media on Facebook or Twitter at BTD_Bingecast. The Bored to Death clan is part of the CKCC Radio podcast family, including J Bunny's Music Hub, the Race Nerd Podcast, Real Paranormal Talk, Ranking Tracks, Motivational Moves, Girls Who Like, and The Nerd Table. Please consider supporting CKCC Radio on Patreon. And now, the binge is done, so let's get to the discussion.
And I'm back, and that was Unification 3. And so this one is about the Discovery crew heading back to Vulcan, which is now known as Navarre, and again, because of what Spock did during the two-parter Unification Parts 1 and 2 in Next Generation, the Romulans and Vulcans are now living on the same planet together, which is Vulcan, but it's called Navarre now. And they find out that there is data that the Vulcans have through the Science Academy that has information regarding the burn, because they developed their own transportation system, much like how the Discovery uses the mycelial network. They had their own version of it where it looks like, because you don't actually see it except for like a little simulation, where it looks like it creates like a wormhole, and the ship goes through and then comes out another end someplace else. And the Vulcans think that that's the reason why the burn happened, so they don't want to share any of that data with anybody, because they're like, oh, well, we kind of blame ourselves for that one. So they get there, and they are greeted by essentially the Vulcan leader, who says, yeah, we've been expecting you. And they originally said no to this whole thing until Michael Burnham says that because she is a graduation of the Vulcan Science Academy, she instituted the Vulcan Takalim Ket, which is basically a thing for the the Vulcan Science Academy, where it's, whoever is issuing this, they need a, best way I could describe it is like court, where she has to present her case. She has a lawyer type who is essentially an advocate who turns out to be her mom. And then during this whole courtroom session with the Vulcans, Romulans, and the Discovery crew, the Vulcans are essentially saying, no, we don't want to share this data with you. The Romulans, on the other hand, are saying, oh, well, we will. So that causes a little bit of a problem there. And then they end up giving it to her anyways later on down the road in the episode. But one of the things that they noticed about her is the fact that she wasn't speaking truthfully. So that's one of the reasons why they were being kind of hesitant. So once she finally starts revealing the truth and she openly admits that she is afraid of failure and that the stakes are extremely high right now, that's when they say, all right, now you're speaking truthfully, but we're still kind of like wary on giving you this information. And so she decides to say, okay, well, you know what, since you're not going to cooperate with me, I'm just going to go ahead and stop this right now. And she leaves. She's sitting there in her quarters. Her mom comes in. They chat a little bit. And then she pulls a disc out that contains the data that she had been wanting. And she says, well, I managed to get it for you anyway, so here you go. You can use this. And her mom says that she's going to stay on Navarre. And meanwhile, there's this little subplot in this one. So the previous episode, Michael Burnham was stripped of her status as first officer and is now chief science officer, strictly chief science officer. So Saru goes to Tilly and tells her, I want you as my new first officer. She's hesitant at first. She doesn't feel like she deserves it, so she goes and talks to Paul Stamets about it. And later on in the episode, after she had told him about this and him being rather surprised by this, he went and told everybody. And everybody told her, say yes to this. And so a lot of them started saying, oh, well, before you do anything, we need to give you a list of inquiries. One of them says, I need a vacation on this place on Earth called Hawaii. One person says, I want quarters with a window in it. And then Michael comes in and says, I need somebody to help me decode this disc with all this information on it. And so Tilly, as her position of first officer, she makes the order to take the data and to extract it off there and to essentially research it, which we see in the next episode. And then she is... Adira also helps Stamets out at one point in time during the episode, because Stamets, he sees her talking to herself, and because she is the first ever human to have a true symbiont inside of her, she's talking to her dead boyfriend, which is not something that the symbiont hosts are supposed to be able to do. They're just supposed to be able to access the memories, not actually talk to anybody. And Stamets thinks that it's because, or they think that it's because she had a connection with the previous host, because it was her boyfriend. And so he goes and tells her about what happened when Hugh had been killed in season 2. Well, not season 2, excuse me, season 1, and when he had come back. And so they kind of got that little bit of a connection right there. And while they're talking, she goes and rolls his sleeve up and sees the devices that he uses to connect to the spore drive system, and says, "I can help you with this." And later on, when he's in bed with Hugh, he's rubbing the spots where they used to be on his arms, and they're both saying, "Oh, I'm so glad I don't have to wear this anymore," because he did openly admit that they were uncomfortable, and I think he also said they itched. So both of them are glad that he doesn't have to use those anymore. And she tweaked the interface a little bit for the spore drive system to where he doesn't have to connect to it. Now he can just put his hands in this like gel or whatever, and he can control the spore drive that way. Now, after all of this, they go and they leave Navarre and to start working on this data, which I'll get back to in the next episode. This episode, while it did show progress in terms of like one of the previous storylines, which was again Spock trying to unify the Vulcans and the Romulans, since Romulans came from Vulcan, they just didn't want to accept the whole show no emotions thing like what Vulcans were doing. They wanted to do their own thing, so they left and found Romulus. And this episode shows that what Spock was working towards actually happened. So, and we get a random little holographic cameo of Leonard Nimoy from that particular two-parter. So, it was a nice little cameo, a way to bring Leonard Nimoy into Discovery. And it also had a reference towards Anton Yelchin, who plays Chekhov in the 3 Kelvin timeline Star Trek films, who unfortunately passed away after he had gotten done filming Star Trek Beyond. Apparently there was a ship called the USS Yelchin. So that was a nice little tribute to him. And storyline-wise, again, not a whole lot. This wasn't really an action-filled episode. The episode before that, definitely, especially since that took place in more of a junkyardy type planet. And then the next episode, definitely a lot more action scenes in that one. And they got a little more information towards the burn. I know that after the episode Terra Firma, I believe there's only like 1 or 2 more episodes after that, and that's the end of season 3. So hopefully by the end of that, they're going to get all the information as to what caused this catastrophic event. So until then, I'm Chris, and I'll see you on the next binge.
Thanks for listening to the Bored to Death Bingecast. Be sure to check out our library of past podcasts via CKCC Radio or via our YouTube channel, and give us a like and subscribe. We'll see you after our next binge.